One of the hardest things is asking for help. So I think if you can reach out and ask for help, that is one way you can make sure that you stay okay. And be that person that someone else can reach out to.
Hey everyone, I'm Angeline Constantinu, and this is Her Unapologetic Voice. This podcast was created for women who lead but are done leading from apology. Here we have real, unfiltered conversations about boundaries, truth, and confidence. The kind of talks that remind you your voice is not something you find once, it's something you build. Every episode will give you something real to take with you, whether it's a boundary script, a reflection tool, or simply the courage to say what you really mean. So if you're ready to lead from your truth, not from approval, this is your space. Your unapologetic voice starts here. Welcome back to Her Unapologetic Voice podcast, the space where women rise, heal, and speak their truth, even when the conversation feels uncomfortable. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about breaking the stigma of incarceration, addiction, healing, second chances, and the power of voice with Rachel Dalinka. And today's episode is a powerful reminder that our stories matter and that healing begins when we stop judging and start listening. So I'm honored to be joined by Rachel Dalinka, an expert facilitator, community advocate, and the host of the Opening Doors podcast. Rachel brings over 25 years of experience creating career development, health awareness, and mindfulness programs for underserved communities. But what makes her voice especially impactful is her lived experience. Growing up with a father who was incarcerated and addicted, Rachel understands firsthand the stigma, silence, and emotional weight that many families carry. Through her work and her podcast, she's breaking down barriers, restoring dignity, and creating space for second chances. This conversation is honest, raw, and real, compassionate, and this conversation is necessary. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's open the door to handling the truth unapologetically. So, Rachel, welcome to the show. Welcome to the stage, as I always say.
Thank you so much for having me, Angeline. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to be here with you too, bright and early this morning. So I always ask all my guests, what time is it where you are and what is the temperature?
Well, it is 9:27. I'm in Philadelphia and it's 12 degrees here. It is really cold.
I love Philly and I've been to Philly many times. 12 degrees is very cold for Philly.
Yeah, it's been a frigid week and I think next week's going to be the same. So
Aww.
Hello, winter.
And me in Southeast Florida and I'm complaining. So right now the temperature is 49 degrees and sunny. Okay. And the high will be 70 degrees. So
that's a great day.
But come Sunday morning, it's going to be totally different, 20s. But anyways, great to have you here, Rachel. So happy to have you here. And I know that your personal story is very impactful. So at what point did you realize that your lived experience wasn't something to hide, but something that could actually help others? So please share your story.
Sure. I grew up with a dad who was a criminal defense attorney, and he did a lot of good work with helping to decriminalize drugs, so when he worked with an organization called NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. But he also got involved with cocaine, and he was a cocaine addict. And my parents were divorced when I was 7, and my mother thought it was really important for us to spend time with our father. What she didn't realize was that what my brother and I were exposed to when we were at my dad's. And so we saw just a lot of drug use and a lot of chaotic behavior that goes with cocaine use. And very sadly, we also experienced my father's second wife's suicide. And so these are really intense, heavy things to happen to a kid. And I knew that this wasn't what was happening in my friends' houses, and I held a lot of shame. And then when I was about 15, I opened the door to the drug enforcement agents, and my dad was arrested. And when I was 16, he went to prison. So it wasn't really that he was not dealing drugs, but he was kind of set up because he busted up cases that they spent years trying to create against defendants. But it was devastating to have my dad go to prison. And I held so much shame around that. And really, what helped me to start working with others to tell their stories and to work with their grief and their shame around what happened in their families of origin was when I started doing work myself. And I realized, wow, I wish I had known this when I was younger. I wish when I was a teenager, someone had said to me, this isn't your shame to hold. This isn't, as traumatic and awful as things that happened were. I wish I had had help separating myself from them. And it was something I always really wanted to do. And in all honesty, I am a cancer survivor, and I had colorectal cancer, and I have been cancer-free for 6 years. But after cancer, I realized you've got a second chance here. You have got to do this work. You have got to share your story and put it out there. No more putting it off.
Exactly. And I commend you for stepping up at such a young age, 15. That takes a lot of courage. And actually, you were doing your father a service because it was so out of control and chaotic.
Oh,
so how can we encourage so let's say someone is in that same situation, similar situation. What would your advice be? If someone is so ashamed to turn their own parents in or their own father, what would you say to them?
Yeah, no, I didn't turn them in. They arrived at the door. They just showed up. They showed up at 5 a.m. and I opened the door.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no. I had nothing to do with it at all.
You didn't? Okay.
Except for just being there.
You just happened. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so it was pretty hard to watch my dad be taken away in handcuffs. And I honestly lied about it for years. People would say, where's your dad? Why isn't your dad at your high school graduation? Why isn't your dad? And I hid it and pretended it wasn't happening, even though it was all over the newspapers. And so it really took me a long time. I would say in my mid-20s, I started really going in therapy, and I realized that I needed to heal from all of the chaos in my life if I wanted to have healthy relationships. And I did. I wanted to, and I wanted to be free of a lot of the bad habits that you get when you deal with trauma as a kid. You learn coping mechanisms that aren't really helpful. Hiding and not asking for help, or pushing people away, or lashing out. So I honestly, one of the things that really helped me a lot was my going to yoga and having a yoga practice that was with a hatha yoga studio, where the idea of really centering in your mind and your body and calming your nervous system through breath and movement. Yeah, it was really a big game changer for me. I think that was self-care. And then another thing that really helped with healing was support groups. I went to Codependence Anonymous and Al-Anon groups where I could share my story with people whose stories were way more intense than mine, or they understood there was no judgment. And the more I heard other people's stories, the more I realized that there isn't as much judgment as everybody thinks, that people really do understand, wow, this happened to you. This wasn't about you. And so that's a lot of why I wanted to do the podcast, so that other kids that were going through issues of their parents being incarcerated could let go of their shame a lot earlier than I did.
Right, exactly. And you transformed your experiences into mission-driven work. So
Yes.
incorporating yoga, that's what I did. Same thing. I was ashamed to share my story for years. No one knew. People thought that we were the Hollywood couple, that type of thing. But people actually didn't know what went behind closed doors because it's of that shame and guilt. Like for me, the last 3 years before I actually filed for divorce, for me, I started to incorporate self-love and work on myself. So this way I could be in a position to file for divorce and
Yeah,
also break free from domestic violence. This is a perfect example of how we can turn our pain into purpose and mission-driven work, and incorporating yoga and movement. I still do it today. Movement is life.
absolutely. And when I get nervous or anxious, I stop and do breathing exercises. And the ones I really like is box breathing, where you count and inhale. Maybe you count while you're inhaling, you hold your breath for 4 seconds, you release for 4 seconds, and then you hold it out for 4 seconds. So you're making like a little square, and it calms the nervous system. And it's amazing when you do that, when you calm your nervous system, you can think more clearly. And
Absolutely.
and one of the things that used to happen to me, one of my defense mechanisms was to sort of lash out. And I was very reactive and very defensive.
Mm.
And being able to stop and breathe and take that moment before reacting has made a huge difference in my life and in my relationships with others.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
See? That's amazing. So let's talk about your mission driven work.
I have been an educator, and I started in high school in the inner city, and then I started teaching adults, and I moved on to doing a lot of what I like to call power skills, not soft skills, communication, conflict
Mm,
resolution, and helping people become managers. And then was fortunate enough to work with a client, manage Medicaid, and start doing workforce development programming for underserved communities. And
mm,
I then got involved with working with reentry. So people that had been incarcerated and were coming back. And really, my dad's story is that he got clean, he got sober in prison. And when he came out of
oh,
prison, he really found redemption, and he worked really hard to repair the relationships with my brother and my sister and I. He worked really in a paralegal capacity. This has been a man who was a really big attorney, to work in that capacity for about 10 years until he was able to get his law license back.
that's
And
great.
so a lot of what I learned was that redemption is possible. And I learned
Mm,
that from my dad. And that's a lot of what I wanted to share with my podcast, but also the work that I realized that I came naturally to me. So I've been working with people to
mm,
find second chances through either getting people that have been formerly incarcerated, people that have been addicted, and helping them to gain the skills that they need to sort of show up professionally, as well as maybe get a certificate or some kind of professional certification so that they can get a job where
right.
they have growth. And I also work with a nonprofit, and we help people, we
Oh,
work with employers and workforce
great.
organizations to work with people that are unhoused, people that are in shelter, to get them ready to get a job and a career that can help them change their lives and their family's life. So I feel pretty lucky to be in a position where I can do this work. I'm going to be teaching in behind the walls in the prisons. It's not something I've done yet, but I am really looking forward to being able to help people get ready, because I think one of the most important things is, if somebody is behind bars,
Right.
that they really do the work to rehabilitate, that they are learning a skill and methodology to get out and do something different, right? Not go back
Now go
to,
back to that life again.
yeah,
Exactly. Boy,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That is amazing. That's so important because we all can redeem ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's
Hmm.
one of the biggest lessons that that my dad taught us is that second chances are not only possible, but they're real. And when when my dad was able to be there for us and I saw how much he changed, it really healed. It really did a lot to help heal my wounds and my scars. And
That's good.
so yeah, so I'm hoping to help others get their second chances and you know, do what I can do.
Do what
Be
you
all
can
those
do
little drops in
exactly.
the bucket.
Exactly. And healing and empower and employment must go hand in hand. So I
Sure.
commend you for doing that and supporting undeserved and unhoused communities. So you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
provide that. So this way they're prepared. So when they leave prison, they're ready.
Well, they're on the way to being ready. I think the other thing that's
Mhm.
super important for anybody, whether it's prison, whether it's addiction, whether it's getting over having been in an abusive relationship, is support, continued support and community. One of the things that I'm a big proponent of is when somebody leaves prison or when they leave treatment, that they reach out and join a support group and or a spiritual community and make sure that they are not alone.
Right,
That
exactly.
the more studies show that when people are connected to others that are going through similar issues, they're much more empowered.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That's so important.
yeah.
So important.
And it's so important for people to destigmatize like what you're doing, having people talk about hard topics that they usually want to hide, right? And saying, "Hey, this is okay. This happened to me." We all go through this life with burdens that we can share with other people and not be shunned.
Right, exactly. I'm loving this conversation. So, if you could leave our listeners with one truth about healing, dignity, and second chances, what would it be?
Well, I have this thing I call the four S's: support, which we talked about, support
Right,
groups
of
or
course.
therapy, self-care, like yoga, dance, gardening,
Mm-hmm.
cooking, something you love, service, giving back,
Yep.
and spirituality, whatever that means for you, right? There's so many different ways to find a spiritual path, but I think when we know that there's something greater than us out there, that can really help in our healing. So I find those that if I can maintain those four S's in my life, and one of the hardest things is asking for help. So I think if you can reach out and ask for help, that is one way you can make sure that you stay okay. And be that person that someone else can reach out to.
There you go. Absolutely. And this is, like I said, a great topic because it's so important to break the stigma and break the silence on this. There's help out there. And I love that you talked about community, support, spirituality, whatever that means. For me, it's God. God is the higher power,
There's
whatever it is.
a lot of support and solace to be found there.
Exactly. One last question before, because we're almost at the top of the hour already. It's a great conversation here. What's a special message that you would like to share to the women out there who are afraid to break their silence and share their stories? What would that message be?
There's a space inside of you that
Mm,
is light and love. And as desolate as awful as you feel, know that you are loved and that you can love yourself and find the strength within yourself. Find that strength. It's in there. And know that you are capable. You can
exactly.
you can move beyond your fear. Love yourself and move beyond your fear.
I love that. And last question, where can people reach you?
People can reach me on YouTube at Opening Doors Podcast. They can reach me. My podcast is on Spotify and Apple, and there's a website, openingdoorspodcast.com, as well as my professional website is RAD, R-A-D, RAD Consulting.
Okay, very good and awesome. Listeners, for those of you who will be watching or listening to this podcast episode, you can find all these links will be posted in the show notes.
Thank you so much.
And we're going to go live on YouTube in probably, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks. So everything will be uploaded into the show notes. And thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Pleasure.
Magnify women's voices.
It's so important to magnify women's voices because, like I said, so many women feel ashamed. And for me, it took years to break the silence, and I finally did.
Yeah, it took me years too.
Okay, what people don't realize is that there's a lot of shame and guilt involved. Like some will say, why didn't you get divorced right away? Because you don't realize it's, see?
Yeah.
So this is why we broke the silence today, everyone. We're breaking the stigma. So thank you for your honesty, Rachel, your courage, and the work you're doing to break the stigma and create pathways for healing and second chances. There is redemption.
There absolutely is. Thank you, Angeline.
I believe in redemption. Absolutely. Because that's what God would want us to do.
Yep.
Yeah. We have the power. You have the power to redeem yourself.
And we can help lift each other up.
Exactly. Absolutely. No doubt. So to our listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, know this, your story matters. Your voice matters, and healing is possible when we allow ourselves to be seen. So if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a review. And remember, silence protects stigma, but truth creates freedom. So until next time, this is her unapologetic voice reminding you to rise, heal, and speak your truth. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thank you for listening to Her Unapologetic Voice. Every conversation here is meant to help you build confidence from the inside out and find strength in your own words. If today's message resonated, follow the show and share it with a friend who's ready to lead from who she truly is. You can also connect with me on social media at Her Unapologetic Voice Podcast for updates and behind the scenes insights. Remember, confidence begins when you stop apologizing for your truth and start speaking from it. I'm Angeline Constantinou, and I will see you in the next episode.